Hello, I'm Frank McShane with Square Peg Consulting at the Whiteboard. I'm a supply chain cash guide, and these are the components of the business-to-business supply chain as I see it. And there are opportunities to generate more cash in every part of this process. Let me show you what I mean. Hello. In this session on our changing our focus from cost reduction to cash generation, we're going to be talking about what's called order velocity. And that is, as much as possible, reducing the cycle time, the time it takes from the start of an order, either in production or in a distribution center, to the time it's ready to ship. Because the more we can shrink that time, the more orders we can process in the same amount of time, the more cash we can generate in the same amount of time. It is not the same as labor productivity, although it can have some impact on that, but we're not going to be watching the people in this particular case. We're watching the items that we're working on. Okay, and what we're looking to do is reduce this cycle time from the order start to the order ready to ship on this end. Okay, we want to shrink this time. And there's two main things you can do to help it reduce that time. The first, as we've talked about in another session, is setup reduction. So the time it takes us to go from the end of one order to the start and the really running on the next order, compressing that time as much as possible, which is all about focusing on internal versus external activities. Internal being those that can only be done when the machine or the process is down. External are the things that should have been done ahead of time in preparing for this changeover. So we want to identify all these and get them out of that time, and we'll shrink that time. And if we can cut it in half, which is not unusual, if we can cut it in half, that's going to equal 2 times the orders for the same amount of setup time we had before. So it gives you a lot more flexibility in being able to run more orders, run smaller orders. If you're running to stock, you can run things more frequently and not jack up your setup time. The second one is an approach called one-piece flow, which is not literally one piece. It's about taking batches where we make an entire batch or an entire order in one step, and then move it to the next step, and the next step, and then down ultimately into shipping. And so that is the process is cutting those batches down as far as you can. Hopefully get to one, but get as close as you can. And so what that involves is, what's happening is when we're working in batches, let's say a batch of 50, we're going to make an order of 50 for a customer. We process item 1 in the first step. It goes on the shelf or where we put it until we're done item 50. So 1 has to wait all that time. Then it goes to the next step. Same thing happens. 1 gets processed. Now it has to wait till 50 gets done. Then on to the next step. And so the cycle time of the items moving through the process is very extended. And we want to shrink that. So if we get down to, if we cut the batch in half again, we will be able to run 2 times the number of orders in the same amount of cycle time that we did before. So we've cut the cycle time in half. And we can process and ship and bill for twice as many orders, roughly, that we did in the past. If you can get it further, it's not an exact one-to-one relationship, but if you can cut this down to, let's say, a quarter or a fifth of the batch size, you'll get 3 or 4 times as many orders done in that same period of time, that same cycle time that you did before, and be able to generate 4 orders worth of cash in the same amount of time.